On today's episode of Quarantine Chats, we are focusing completely on Mother's Day. I'm really excited to be joined by my mother, Deb Grant. Join us as we hop into conversation around what it means to be a mother, how she felt when she found out that me, her firstborn, was pregnant at the age of 16, how she helped me prepare to be a mother, and also how being adopted at birth played into her being a mother of her own. So join us. I'm excited to get into today's conversation. Thank you guys for joining us today. I'm really excited about the quarantine chat that we are recording today because it is special for Mother's Day. So I have my mommy joining me. Um,
Hello.
Yes, thank you for joining me. Everybody who knows me for real knows that my mom is my best friend, my family in general. They are my best friends. But I think we still have so much that we haven't talked about as far as being women and being mothers. And so I'm excited to take a few minutes today to have that conversation. Um, and to encourage women to have larger conversations with themselves about just what being a mother really means to us and what it does to us. So, yeah, I'm excited.
I am as well. It's gonna be great.
It
I've been
is.
forward
So,
to
I was mentioning my birthday was 3 weeks ago. And so, you have officially been a mom for 33 years.
3 years. And I was just thinking about it, the fact that, we waited. And then it got to the point that, I didn't even know if I would be able to have children. So
Right. And you guys were married for 5 years before you had it?
almost 6.
So, you were 27. You had
Yeah.
just turned 27 when you had me.
Yeah.
So what is that? I often judge where I am in life to where you were in life. So, you know, uh when I was 30, I was like, my mom had been married for 8 years already at this point. At 27, when I was 27, I thought I was grown. But at 27, being married, being on your own, and then settling down in some sense to raise a child, what was that like?
Very much so. It was a total settle down. I was still working. When I had you, but your dad and I had discussed that that wouldn't go on, for much longer. We had actually discussed once we had children that I would come home and be a stay-home mom.
And you
But
were excited about that?
I was, even though I liked being in, professional corporate world, and I even had some of my coworkers to tell me that they didn't think it was going to last because I was used to shopping and we were traveling. And so, you're going to miss that income. So you'll be back. And I remember the day I drove off the lot, I was like, I won't be back. You were too.
Wow. So to me, being a mom is the hardest job that you will ever do. And so being a full-time mom, I think sometimes gets discounted, especially by the people in your household. I don't think I realized I didn't realize growing up, like we like she always here. Like she don't go to the store without us. She don't we can't be here by ourselves. I remember having friends who have working moms, and so they're like, my mom doesn't get home till 6 or whatever. I'm like, my mom gonna be there when I open the door. And
Your friends appreciated it more. The kids in the neighborhood, they was like, yes, we smell the cooking. We cookies. We
and we
got
were like, we're never gonna get to eat out. She's cooking right now. We know it. We know she's making dinner. um, but now that I'm a mom, and Ari's 16, but I feel like that went so fast. 16 years went so fast. And it really just started hitting me in her teenage years. Um, I mean, I've been a mom for 16 years, but in her teenage years, I was really like, I'm a mom. And it was really hitting me at that point, the work that you did. I think parenting changes so many times. There's so many different levels of parenting, but when your child begins to become their own person, that's really when the challenge.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they become their own person young, but when they have then also the will, the power to be outside of your home and act on those things.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, with having the three of you here, you all had your own personalities. You were three separate people. But once you all started, like you said, getting old enough, and the old folks used to say, start smelling yourself.
Right.
It
And
was a
so
good.
I guess we should share. I'm the oldest. I have two younger siblings. I have a brother, Gabriel, who is 4 years younger than me. And then I have a sister, Joy, who is 4 years younger than him.
Yes.
And so
And
that's the full spread, right?
I ask about that all the time. It took me 4 years to decide to do it again. Not really, but
But I think, like, for me, it was 14 with Ariana. Like, we were smooth sailing. We were completely smooth sailing. Then, like, the day, like the week before she turned 14, she literally like lost her mind. And I remember I would be calling you, like, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for anything I ever did.
yeah, I just, that is a rough time. And I remember with each one of you, you like, I don't want to be here. I want to get out. I want to do stuff. And see, with you all, with me being home, you were here with me all the time, as you have mentioned. And we just enjoyed that time. I mean, especially with 4 years apart. And then when Gabriel came, you were excited about being a big sister. And then when Joy came, the same thing happened. So we were all good up here until that 12, 13, 14, when all that started hitting. Everybody wanted their own house, basically, not space. House, get me out of here. Yeah.
And so it's funny because a lot of the things that you think you can't stand when you're a kid are the same things you do when you become a parent, for better or for worse. Like, some of it is, shoot, my mama made me do this, you gonna do it too. But some of it is just like, I see why I couldn't go anywhere, do anything. And it's just crazy, like being in charge of a whole human.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that blows my mind all the time.
The responsibility of it, and the kids nowadays, I can't even imagine. I mean, they just take it so lightly, like, we ride now, we gone, it's a group of us, we hanging out. And I'm like, because of course I really didn't start going like that until you all got grown. And so for me to now be, going and visiting and doing with my friends, and to see young folks doing it on that level, I'm like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So I tell people all the time. So somebody asked me the other day, like, uh, Christian, you always talk about your daddy. I can tell you love your daddy. What's his drink? I'm gonna buy him a drink. And I was like, in like, 33 years, I've never heard my dad curse, and I've never seen him have a drink. And he was like, he's a saint. Like, he was like, and I also like would just talk about you all, like how we were raised. I can count on one hand the number of times I heard you guys argue, and it didn't dawn on me. To me, I was like, they don't argue. And somebody, like, I was dating in college. He was like, your parents argue. I was like, they don't argue. I've only heard them argue a couple of times. And he probably was just like completely over it, because I remember the first time we argued, and I was like the next day he called me, and I was like, yeah, so we just need to get our things from each other's places, and we just need to be done. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, we that argument last night, like that doesn't happen. And he was like, people fight. Like, do you know that? And I was like, not in our household. So um how is that, like, how do you raise an environment that's like peaceful for your kids but still also like nurture your own marriage and relationship?
Well, first of all, that begins at the door. Who you choosing, what you opening and letting into your life, the environment that you set, the atmosphere that you set, your expectations. And, your father, I remember when we were dating, I tried to get all riled up about something with him one time. And he was like, that's what we're not going to do. You'll be arguing by yourself. And I was just so blown away because, I came from neighborhood or family or whatever where people raised their voices, made their opinions known. But he was like, that's not happening. That's not, and I took it at that. And I really had to regroup. And even though that wasn't my nature anyway, but you know how you just think you're cool at times. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my way.
And you were young. You were really young when you got married at 22.
Yeah, 22. And we dated, a year or two before we got married. So we did a lot of talking, and he was like, no, that's not. I remember, literally on our first date, I said something about all men, da 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 da. He was like, what? You did not just put me in the category of those men that you talking about. And so again, that was over. And that was how we set the atmosphere. And also, like I said, we had 6 years, to spend time with each other and develop our relationship, our marriage, and it was centered around, God and a Christian atmosphere. And the prayer life for me began at a very young age. So that has always been my lifestyle, to pray. And that was where I would go with my issues, my problems, and watch them get resolved. Yeah.
So when we talk about being a mom, to you, what was the hardest thing about being a mom? And I'm sure there's three of us, so I'm sure there's more than one. But one thing that just stands out?
The main thing that always comes to me that's, for lack of a better word, fearful, because I don't like to park there on fear, but if I was to get upset or anxious about something, it would be about you all and not having the harmony that we were just talking about, having set in the home. Like when you all got to the stage where if you had disagreements, you would raise your voice or you would let your point be known one way or another. And that's always been the hardest thing for me, when you all are at bat with each other.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we joke about this, and I've said this before. It's almost like you guys raised three only children
Mm-hmm.
because there's no leader of the group. We all very opinionated. We're all leaders of our own groups. But then when we come together, we be like, hey, I don't care what your little friends let you get away with. You're not going to do that over here.
Gosh, yes. And
And
it's
so that's interesting because I've met other siblings where it's like a leader and somebody who just goes along to get along. None of us are doing that.
no, no. And it's that kind of I started seeing that early on with you all, around here, but definitely as adults, that's, mm-mm.
Yeah. When you said Gabriel was excited to be a big brother, I think he was excited to have someone that he could boss around the way I bossed him around. And I only could boss him around as long as I was bigger than him. Like once that was over, then the bossing around was over as well.
Oh yeah, because I was just recently looking at some pictures of him and Joy, and just the look on her face, you could tell he had just said something to her like, "Get it together. What did I tell you?" And that's so true.
Oh my goodness. So, if you could think of what's the biggest lesson that you wanted your kids to learn or to take away, what would that have been?
First of all, to believe in yourself. I mean, what we planted in you all as a creation of the Almighty, being Jesus being the center, we've established that. But to believe in yourself, your goals, your dreams, because we knew, as you mentioned earlier, each of you are individuals, and God, I'm telling you, created and put in such a passion And again, we saw that at an early age, and we tried to do what we could to cultivate, um, to develop and to steer you all in the right direction with that, and just to not give up. And we have seen that play out with each of you. You know, you haven't given up. And my friends tell me all the time, you know, and people always compliment us, you know, on what all you all have, um, you know, been successful in and established in your lives, and continuing to thrive in that area to pursue your dreams. And we're very proud of each of you. And I'm telling you, each of you, all three of you have a testimony in that area.
Yeah. So speaking of that, because each of us have had, I mean, just like anyone, we've had our own struggles and we have our own obstacles and challenges that we have to face. And I think people don't see that side with us. But you know, because you're the one that we call. You know, I hate when I call you like, okay, Christian, are you okay? I'm on the other line with your brother or whatever. I'm like, okay, is his problem bigger than mine right now? Like, he called back. But you're the one who gets all of that, even more so than daddy. Because I think for daddy, I don't ever want to be weak. Like I don't want to whine, but with you, I'm like, Mom, like help me. But how does it feel to watch your kids struggle or go through things that you can't necessarily stop or change? Like you can be with, you know, you can pray for us and be with us, but you can't change the situation.
Oh my goodness. I mean, there are not words. I mean, right now I am in visualizing, um, every situation, you know, those obstacles that came up, be it Gabriel's accident, um, Joy in the hurricane. I mean, there are not words. You being away at college and dealing with that stressful situation and being away from Ariana at times. I mean, fetal position. That's all I can say. Fetal position, knotted up and just working it out. And trying to be, encouraging, as much as I can. Um, you know, and to make sure that you all are remembering your source, and this too shall pass. I mean, and there has been each one of those situations, it wasn't no 24-hour deal,
Right.
you know.
And it's just so the connection between a mother and child is so amazing because if if your child is hurting, like you feel that sometimes even more than they do, you know, because it'll be times where Ari's like, I'm okay, or it's not that bad, and I'm like, no, you know. um to me, I always pay attention to how you can have the calmest person, the most passive person, you can say things to them or do things to them, but if you do something to their baby, like that's when it pulls out, you know, the other side.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember even you in grade school, high school. I remember as a grown woman, I'd be like, man, you know, I never thought I'd be feeling this, you know, way about my child, but no, that's not going down like that.
I've told you that I've shared online different things over the years about you being adopted and adoption. And I've asked you if it was okay.
Mhm.
um, so, a little backstory, and then I'll let you tell. You were adopted at birth, basically at birth, and you grew up your entire childhood life in that same adopted home. So, uh, how do you think that affected you being a mother and how you mothered us?
Oh, yeah. First of all, I was really blessed, as you mentioned, to be adopted right away. My adopted parents got me 3 days after I was born. Um, and just to be in a nurturing, caring, loving Christian home, raised um, under a strong arm, with my parents, but just very loving parents, and was so blessed. And
Yeah.
so from
So Granny, because to be clear, I know we're calling them your adopted parents, but that's Granny and Grandpa, like period.
oh,
Um, so Granny was pregnant.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
she was
and
pregnant. And,
she had wanted kids. She came from a very large family. She was baby girl of 11, and all of her siblings had 7, 10 kids or whatever, just lots of kids. And she was a nurturer of all of her nieces and nephews and all the neighborhood kids, but she wanted her own. And she, I never thought I'd be saying this publicly, but I share it all the time. She had had miscarriages, and 13 miscarriages. That's how bad she wanted a baby. And they got to the point where they knew her, obviously at the hospitals, and had been talking to her about foster parenting. And because she was so busy in her community church and with her family and stuff, I don't think she ever considered it. But after that time, she actually had a baby on my birthday. And by the time she got back home, the next day or so, they called her and said, "We have a baby, and we know you really want to be a mom, and this you need to come and see the baby." And thank God that was it.
that's so amazing. And you've seen the TV show This Is Us, like that is basically the script, and people are just like, wow, it's so
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I remember the first time I was watching This Is Us, I was like, this sounds so familiar. Like I can't put my finger on it. But like um literally to to for those nurses to just to think of you and to think of her and change your whole entire life and the
Mm-hmm.
path that your life could have taken.
Yes, very much so. I'm telling you, because you couldn't have told nobody that I wasn't hers and she wasn't mine, especially my daddy. Oh, yeah, he was the man, but mama, I mean, I'm telling you, she did it all. She did it all for everybody.
Yeah, and she was such a big personality. And I remember you guys told me very young that you were adopted. And so, she was my adopted grandma, but
Mm-hmm.
that didn't mean anything to me. And everybody would call her mother. And I would remember just being at the house like, that is my granny. She's mine. Like, she would be hugging someone or they come visit her. And I'd be like, but I came here to see you. Can they come back later?
People
But
doing
that
that.
just speaks about who she was.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
she made everybody feel like, because people would come in and you could tell they thought they had a special relationship with her. And I would be like, you better look at these pictures on these walls. Like, you know who I am.
Yes, yes, and everybody. Oh my gosh, people from all over the world. I mean, because she would take in families. And so those would always be the type families that people that would come back. I actually just talked with a family today, a group of family. I was just thinking about them. 5 boys that she took in when their mother, needed help.
Wow.
And she kept them boys for a year or so, maybe.
Wow.
And it was always somebody in and out. Hmm.
And so they called her. She obviously already had a nursery and everything set up.
Well, I don't know. This was in 1960, so a nursery,
Well,
because
or she was preparing for a child.
yeah, yeah, and I'm sure knowing her, she was ready. And looking back on pictures and stuff, it wasn't no issue. She was ready. Hmm.
And so her and grandpa were married at the time, and they brought you home. And she would, the few times she and I, that she would reference it, she would be like, that is my baby. Is no difference. And even though her and grandpa didn't stay married, the way that they co-parented, that's the term now. If I was talking to her, she'd be like, co-parent. we raised that girl. Like,
Wait, speed dial, his number? Yes.
But even they both got remarried. You were their only child, but just the way they both loved you, they both stayed committed. I remember when I had Ariana, and once she was about 4 or 5, me and her dad, started going our separate ways. But of course, first love, there was drama, and my mom and Granny was like, "That's his baby. You gonna make sure he sees that baby. You're not gonna stop him from seeing that baby." And I was like, "You're supposed to be on my side." And she's like, "Listen, as a woman, I understand. I understand the hurt. Whatever happens between him and you, if you need to scream and yell and throw something, that's between you and him. But when it comes to that baby, it's not happening." And looking back, just how they were able to navigate that and be friends, I would be so shocked every time he would come over and he said, "What you cooking? It smell good." She would go make a plate, and I'm like,
Yeah, he called Big Mama.
"Yep."
He would just open, if the door wasn't unlocked, he was knocking hard enough, like, what's going on in there? But he'd be like, "Hey, Big Mama, what you cooking?" Or either he'd be like, "I'm on my way." Oh, what can you cook then? He would, and even because I remember once your dad and I got together, we took a family portrait with my dad and his wife and my mom and her husband. They both had remarried, and all of us, and there was never a question about the communication. At a young age, I remember him coming back to the house and just having to set some stuff straight in the neighborhood or whatever, like, no, just because you don't see me here, I'm still the man here, no. He didn't play about taking care of his family. Mm-hmm.
I even remember when Grandpa Collins, Grandma's second husband, um, was alive, and Grandpa would still come over. And to be clear, it's so amazing how you had so many amazing people in your life. Because Grandpa Collins, like, Ari is named after him. His name was Sydney, and Ariana's middle name is Sydney. My boutique was Sydney's boutique. That was my guy. That was, and mind you, they were married when I was born, so that just was my world. But that was my guy. And so, but I remember Grandpa would still come over to the house while she was remarried, and they would just say hey, and they would just hang out, and I was like, y'all just cool, everybody cool.
Everybody cool. They would. And I remember when we bought this house, we had a open house, big gathering. We always had gatherings, and we would all be in the backyard. And for newcomers, they would see them, laughing and hanging out, and they'd be like, "Wow, that was rare." But they were special people. That's just how it was. And my mom wasn't gonna have it any other way, and my dad wasn't gonna have it any other way.
Yeah. So, okay, but back to the question, how do you think, because you knew at a very young age that you were adopted
3. Mm-hmm.
at 3, and 3, like, that's
Yeah.
just so young.
Kindergarten to know, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you think that affected your journey through motherhood, and just how you raised us, how you mothered us? Do you think that changed anything for you?
Um, no, because I just did what I knew. I just did what I was taught, as a nurturer, um, to protect and provide a nurturing space, because that was mom, like, as we've been saying, her home was where everyone could come and feel comfortable. And that was what I always dreamed of, being a mom and to be able to be home with you all. And then, like I said, my pregnancies were not easy. And so for each one of you to come here healthy and strong, that was my joy, just to be here with you all, to make sure that you were protected and comfortable.
Yeah. And so, how did becoming a mom, if it did at all, how did that change how you felt about your birth mom?
It didn't. It may be hard for people to believe or understand, but I just didn't think about it. I literally did not think about it. Not growing up, because even though my mom, Elsie, told me at 3, we didn't talk about it all the time. I mean, because we were living life. And then when I had you all, our lives were centered around you. If we weren't at the grandparents' house, they were here.
Mm-hmm.
If we weren't traveling to, Aunt Ruth and Uncle Woody's, I mean, we were busy. And so I just did not think about it. I'm trying to remember. I should have looked at those dates. It was before I had you all that I did try to reach out, that I did make contact through the adoption agency. But as far as, how that affected me, it didn't, because I just did what was in me.
Right.
You
Yeah. So, okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. For those who don't know, I became a mom when I was 16. Well, I got pregnant when I was 16, and then right before I turned 17, I had Ariana. And so Ariana's 16 right now. She just turned 16 in February, and I think that really like hit me.
Mm.
Lord knows, like she is not ready to like
Mm.
bring a child into this world. Like to if I went in her room right now, there's plates, there's cups. She couldn't like carry a child and raise them. So as grown as I thought I was, and it might sound contradictory, I wasn't fast. Like I wasn't fast girl. I think a lot of people, including me, were surprised once I was pregnant. But I did think I was just mature, older, sophisticated. When I went to school and was taking my college courses, I just thought I was more sophisticated. So I think in a lot of ways was more mature than her. She's more of a child, which I appreciate every day when I see her like just being a child. But how did that feel to look at your 16-year-old and know that they were going to have a child?
Hmm. Um, After I got over the initial moment, shock, I couldn't stay there. I couldn't look at you in that sense consistently. You know what I'm saying? I had to think about what we were going to do, how we were going to get through this, how we were going to navigate it, because I had to keep or try to keep everything else around us, to let you know, yes, we're here for you. Yes, you're going to college. Um, but, your dad, I had your dad, I had your brother and your sister. And, I had Granny and them telling me, it's going to be all right. You know, some of the other mothers that was in my corner, we had plenty of support. But the initial, I couldn't believe it. Like you said, there nobody could have told me that,
Yeah.
because that just wasn't what, you know, for lack of a better way of putting it, what we expected. Not only out of our standards, but because of the standards you had set for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, you
Yeah.
know,
And so, we found out I was pregnant at about 5 months. Well, I knew for a couple of weeks before you guys knew. Um, so I think that helped. Like
I did it for a long.
that we had to move so quickly and do so much. Because I can't imagine being pregnant for like 7 months or something in the house. And it was my junior year of high school, and so it was just so much happening. But I do remember just feeling like they might kill me. Like I might just die. Like I really wasn't sure. The night you found out, I was on the phone with my best friend, and I remember her like how it all went down, and you were yelling and I was scared, and she was like, I'm gonna call you back. And I was like, I just was like, don't you dare hang up this one. Like, you may never talk to me again. I might die. And I truly believe that. And like, I was like, if something happens, you need to call 911. And me and her laugh about that now. Like, we laugh really hard. But in the moment, I was like, girl, call the people if this is going the wrong way. Um,
Yeah.
that was a hard. And I think I've never thought about this. If somebody would have asked me last week, what's the hardest thing I ever had to do, I probably would have thought something else. That night was the hardest night. I remember you said I had to tell my dad, and I had never in my life just told you no for something. Like I never just said no, but I was like, I'm not like I can't move from where I'm at.
Yeah. And I remember you saying I can't, you, by that point you were crying. I can't disappoint him. I don't want to disappoint. I remember when I told him, boy, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. But, we had to snap out of it. And of course, we had our own moments, in
Together.
quiet, where we had to work through and deal through some stuff, and with our pastors. And because I'll never forget, that was one of the first calls I made.
I was so mad. I was so mad that you called the pastor, like right then.
I was
I was
like,
like,
oh,
why? Why? And it was a Saturday night.
you needed help that night, sister.
It was a Saturday night. Church was in the morning. And it was literally, I wasn't showing. That was the crazy thing. I wasn't showing. You would have just thought I was a little thicker if you didn't know me. But you saw that day how my shirt was falling. Then when I lifted my shirt, you made me lift my shirt. You could see the line. But literally the next day, you guys made me get up and go to church. None of my clothes fit the next day when I went to get up. It was like she was like, whoo, everybody knows I can stretch out. Like none of my clothes fit. I remember like the next day I had to like buy bigger clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just the craziest thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to make sure I mentioned when I made the phone call to the pastor's wife, Pastor A got on, and when I just blurted it out, I'm like, because by this time I'm crying. We literally, all this had just fell out. And I said, if there be any love, where is it? Why? We've done everything, trained them up in this house and nurtured them the way that we're supposed to. And we barely missed a church service. So what? And the first words out of her mouth was, if there be any love, you go love on her right now. You go love on her. You be there for her. And I'm telling you, I had to take that stance throughout, and I'm not saying that it was perfect, because it was sometimes that you probably felt like I was looking at you, with an attitude, but it wasn't easy, but we got through it. Mm-hmm.
I think I spent the rest of my time in the house until college holding my breath. Just because I never wanted to disappoint you guys. But at the same time, I also felt like you guys, I realized how you guys just stood behind me, and that shocked me so much. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting like you grounded, like you can't do nothing ever again in your life, that was the role I was expecting you guys to take.
Yeah, like I said, once I heard those words to go love on you and to do what was needed, we literally, and like you said, 5 months, we had to shift and just get in the mode. I remember, like, okay, Now you got to give up your room. And stripped your, literally gutted it down to the walls, painted and made it a nursery. And,
Yeah. Instead of getting a car, we got a crib. We got, like uh there were things that I had to give up. I remember the Christmas before she was born, Granny was like, well, okay, we got you this little gift, but we got the baby, all of this. She was like, this is being a mama. It's not about you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. We were blessed. The church family was really behind us. Your godparents, were a blessing. Gabriel's godparents, my best friend, them folks came through. They were like, no, you talking about now I'm about to tear up. You talking about seeing the love of God in motion. They were like, because the first time we went down to tell them, the godparents, they took you on the shopping spree that day. You're like, hey, because you were like, no, still trying to wear your clothes. No, took you shopping. It was like, no. And I'm telling you today, if we show up without Ariana,
right. They're like, it's nice to see you, but where my baby at? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And your cousins from Detroit, they was here. Like you said, the next day you went to church, and then it was a sequence. I was like, okay, we might as well let the family know, let the church family know, and people were on it.
Yeah. And I think that my life would be so much different without Ari, but not necessarily in a good way. She just, from that day, it was like, okay, this is what we got to do. And it's always been like that. Wasn't no giving up. We've all made sacrifices. And so I've just always felt like we got to get it done. Too many people sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. From the very beginning, we just set the tone that we wanted her to know, you know, that she wasn't a mistake,
Right.
that she was loved, that she was family. And from right here in the house, from Gabriel and Joy, um, I remember somebody telling me, "Oh, watch Gabriel and Joy when she born. You ain't gonna be able to touch her, once they and just their relationships. I'm just so proud of them how they stepped up
Yeah.
to the plate.
I haven't told, I don't think we joke about it, but I don't think I've ever really said that. I think Daddy was just so shocked and hurt. He didn't really lecture me, but the lecture that Gabriel gave me in front of, I was so mad at him because, so if I'm 16, he's 12.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was 12. And you guys pulled us all into the living room and you said, Christian, you got to tell your brother and sister. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, I'm telling them. And he was 12, but he was a small for a 12-year-old. And he jumped up and he said, I can't believe you. I can't believe you would do this to our family. What are you thinking? And he just went on this whole, I remember even Daddy was shocked. But Daddy was like, he said everything I want to say to this girl right now. I don't think he ever been more proud of that boy.
Oh,
And I was just so angry at him. I was like, I could not stand you before, and I definitely can't stand you now. But he was the main one, and to this day,
that was the one reason we had to go to counseling, was because of his stance. Because he was trying to make a point for a minute. And that was the one counseling appointment that we had to have out of that situation.
did I
Hmm.
know that?
I don't know if you
Which
did.
I went to counseling. No, I don't think I knew that.
Pastor had to get with brother because he was standing his ground, like he was mad at you. He wasn't going to forgive you. And I'll never forget it. And we sitting across that desk, and Pastor was all calm and, doing what he does. Very eloquent, having his conversation. Well, what makes you feel like that, Gabriel? And what do you think Jesus would do? And then all of a sudden, Pastor hit that desk. And what he did, I mean, this shocked everybody. And he came across that desk and he said, now you will do what Christ said to do. Love and respect her as your sister. And I didn't expect that. And I'm telling you that it took a minute, but it changed the tone. It got us back on base. And Pastor A said, once that baby's born, he'll be fine. And he was the main one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think for Gabriel, for my brother, he and I still didn't see eye to eye. I just knew my baby was gonna come out looking exactly like him because I could not stand him. He would drink my juice, he would eat my snacks, and he just would do it on purpose. And he was like, "You getting kind of big anyway. You ain't need those snacks." And I just like could not stand him. But that didn't change how he felt about the baby. Me and him might not have been on the same page, but to this day, he is Ariana, to the end.
Mhm.
Even, and I have I have friends who even themselves come from close knit families, but I've had friends who I would never expect them to say like, I wish I had a family like yours, or I wish I was a part of y'all family because you guys are so close. And people don't know, like, we still have our disagreements.
Mhm.
you know there are times that we're not talking to each other, things like that, but I'll still tell Ari, like, I'm not talking to your uncle right now, but check on my brother, make sure he's good, and let me know,
Mhm.
like, he all right. And she'll be like, you call him. I'm not talking to him, but you call him and you check on him.
Mhm.
So, like, you guys put that in us, and I don't think that's something that we'll ever let go, just being there for each other, and especially in the hard times. We have all had our own different hard times, but we're there for each other.
That was the grounding rule of the household, that no matter what, we have to. And especially not only with me being adopted, but being an only child. My dad remarried, and they had kids. And so I do have siblings, what the world would say stepbrothers and sisters. But, I was grown when
Right.
my dad.
Much older than
Yeah,
all of them.
yeah. So, to have come out of that situation, even though my both sides, my mom, baby girl of 11, my dad, I think he's third or fourth oldest out of 13. So big families, but I was always nurtured as an only child. And that was what I knew. And so, like you said, for you all to be treated individually, um, brought up kind of like only child, 4-year apart situation, but to know that yes, you're loved and you're to love one another. And I just have always, known that that was going to be the rock. Hmm. Yeah, and I'm just thankful that your dad and I were here to instill that. Your dad comes from a very strong, loving family. You know, I'll never forget, watching his cousins, you know, they all look alike, they laugh alike, they act alike. When we would go down for holidays and see them, and I mean, it'd be like a big party because your dad was raised as like all of his cousins, they were like raised like all brothers and sisters,
Right.
one big family. And so when I saw that, because I had never really seen that.
Right.
So yeah, I was like, and that's what I want y'all to know. Hmm.
Okay, so we are going to wrap it up. But I do want to end on just what is the one takeaway that you want us to all have? And I mean, I know, loving God is, absolutely. And you've talked about who we are as individuals, but as we move forward, we still all have so much more life to live. Um, what is one thing that you would hope we take with us in the next phase of our lives?
Well, I know you don't necessarily want me to be redundant in saying to stay focused, keeping God first, but to write the vision and make it plain. Some of the things that we've done in the past that we may not necessarily want to go back around that roller coaster again,
Mhm.
you know, to get on task, get on target, to stay focused. And I'm preaching to me, because there are still some things to be done, especially, just having celebrated this birthday that I did, turning 60.
That's
And
big.
yeah, that's big. And, I still have two daughters that will be embarking on marriage. And so, we have some things to do, but we got to stay focused, and we got to, start dwelling away at some of these things that need to be taken care of so that you're set up to be ready for that next phase.
Mm. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you again. I love talking to you. We could talk all day. We do. We talk all day. But thank you for being willing to share your story uh, with others who are adopted themselves or who have adopted, who are raising their own families. Thank you for being willing to share that, and I'm really excited for them to be able to listen in on the kind of conversations that we have all the time.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Love you. Mwah.
Thank you again for tuning in. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification button. We'll see you next time.